Are you struggling to lose weight? You're not alone. If you know my story, up until 2.5 years ago, I was morbidly obese at a 41% body fat. And it was an extremely difficult journey for me to get from that obese weight to where I am today, a nationally qualified bodybuilder. My guest today is Olivier Mankondo. And honestly, I wish I knew of him back when I was struggling with my weight loss. He's a speaker, author, weight loss and wellness coach who is extremely passionate about helping people achieve their optimal health. Olivier himself lost 77 pounds in 9 months and reversed all his chronic diseases and slowed down his aging process. As a result of this remarkable health journey, he hasn't been sick for a single day in the past 8 years. This is his story and how he was able to regain his health and life. Hi, Olivier. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you, Mark. And I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine. You have quite an incredible story. You are a health, holistic weight loss coach who specializes in plant nutrition. So tell us a little bit about how you found yourself in this area of life.
Yeah, so basically what's happened is that when I was growing up, because I was born and grew up in Africa, and over there, basically when I was born, there was no computer games, no video games and stuff like that. So we were forced to play outside, running around, climbing trees and all that. So we were really all the time in movement. And I was not exposed to a lot of animal product, dairy product and processed food. That's why I was very lean when I was growing up. And only when I left my country, I went to South Africa and then came to the UK. And that's when I starting to have that weight problem because I was exposed to a lot of animal product, dairy product, processed food, and I was eating all the time. And for example, until midnight, I would have my bottle of Coca-Cola with some biscuits, some cakes and stuff like that. And because of that, I topped up my weight and I reached 220 pounds. And my health was pretty bad. All the time I was tired. For example, on the day when I had to go to work, I will drag myself out of bed. And when I was not working, I will stay at home and I will sleep until 1 p.m. And I had lots of health problems. I was suffering from high blood pressure. I was suffering from, I was having headaches every day or every other day. And in fact, I had to have some painkillers in my wallet all the time. I had dandruff, chest pain, back pain, abscesses, joint pain, and a lot of dental problems. And I was also suffering from heartburns. So basically, that's what all this situation conducted me to experiment plant-based nutrition.
So why plant nutrition though?
Yeah, because what's happened is that it was all of us, then I didn't choose to do that, but it's just on a certain Wednesday, I was watching a program on YouTube and there was an Indian yogi who suggested that by stopping eating animal product, it was possible to reverse 70% of the chronic diseases. And because at that time, my health was pretty bad and I had watched that Indian yogi for quite some time, so I really trusted him. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that because my health is pretty bad. So it was a Wednesday that I watched the program. On Thursday, I came back from work, had my last piece of meat. And on Friday, I went cold turkey. And the following week, it was horrendous because I had loads and loads of detox symptoms. And that's what people need to understand, that when you change your way of eating abruptly, like that's the way the body will try to detoxify itself. And for most people, they will say, oh, it's not working. And they will revert back to what they was doing before. But for me, I said to myself, I will continue that even though at home here, my family, they told me that to stop because I had more headaches for 3 days, headaches that I've never had in my entire life. I had more cold sore, my joints starting to ache even more. But I said, no, I'm going to continue to do that. I'm not going to stop. And then after a week, all these symptoms just vanished and I lost 11 pounds in a week. And because of that, I said, okay, this is working for me. And I continue with that. And 4 months into my transformation, I went to see my doctor who told me that I would be on medication for the rest of my life. And my blood pressure was completely gone. And after 9 months, I was able to lose 77 pounds. All my chronic diseases disappeared. There's nothing left anymore. And for the past 8 years, I've not been sick a single day and I've not taken a single pill. And the bonus on top of that is that I've been able to slow down my aging process because a lot of people, when they see me, they think that I'm in my late 20s, but I'm actually 54.
Wow. I didn't know you were 54. I would have thought something similar. That is insane. I love it. I really resonate with this journey because I too was in a place in life where I was overweight and I was having sleep issues and blood pressure issues and all types of things. And I was able to also lose a lot of weight. So I'm very curious about your journey because it's very different than mine. And I know there's a lot of interest in plant based eating, but I know the audience will have a few questions. So, for example, you talked about this detox process, right? What is exactly happening to the body when it's detoxing itself for a few days when you have just completely cut out meat?
Yeah, so what's happening is that when you eat the wrong food that your body is not accustomed to, so what will happen is that your body will have a shock and will see that you've completely changed what you were doing. And the way that the body will try to get rid of all the bad stuff that you've been eating for a very long time, the body will take all these toxins and will dump that in the blood, in your bloodstream. And what will happen? You will start having a lot of detox symptoms, like you will have lots of headaches. You can start, for other people, they will have diarrhea. For other people, they will have some skin rashes and stuff like that. So basically, the body will take all the toxin, dumps that in the bloodstream, and the body will try to get rid of all these things by all the means. So, for example, through your skin, or you will have headaches, or you will have diarrhea, or so basically you will have all these things, and that's how the body detoxes. But for most people, they are not aware of that, and they will think that, oh, it's not working. And if you revert back to what you were eating, the body will stop doing that process, and you will feel good, and you will say, yes, it's because I wanted to change my way of eating and it didn't work. But people don't understand that's the way the body detoxifies itself. So for some people, for me, for example, it took a week. For some people, it can take 2 weeks. For other people, 3 weeks and stuff like that. And for other people, they will not even have those detox symptoms. So it really depends on the toxicity in your body.
When it comes to consuming the amount of protein you need to have to maintain your muscle mass or even build muscle masses, when you're in a plant-based diet, where are you getting this protein from?
Yes. When people ask me that question, the way that I try to answer that question is by taking the example of a gorilla. A gorilla, we share 99% of the same DNA with gorillas, but which means that our digestive system is practically the same. But what do gorilla eat? They eat fruit, vegetables, and tender root. Gorilla do not eat meat, but they are very strong. They are very muscular. So they only get their protein from the stuff that they eat, the fruit, the vegetables, the tender root, and all that. And that's exactly where I get my protein from. I get that from the fruit that I eat. I get that from the vegetables. I get that from the tofu. I get that from the beans, the lentils, and all these things. Because in the society, we've been told that, oh, you can only have protein from animal sources, but it's not true. And when you look, for example, at the giraffe, you look at the rhino, you look at the elephant, all of them, they've got protein, but they don't eat meat. So you can have all the protein from just the grass that they eat, or for us human beings, from the fruit, vegetables, legumes, grain nuts, and seed. You will have all your protein requirement met.
Yeah, no, definitely lentils, tofu, like you mentioned, they are high in proteins. Kidney beans, there's a lot of things that are high in proteins. Are you tracking your macros? Are you determining how much protein you need, how much carbs you need, how much fat you need, and then planning out the meals accordingly to fit those macro numbers?
I don't do that. What I do, I just eat. When I feel satisfied, I stop. That's all I do. I've never counted the macros and all this calculation or preparation. No, I don't do that. I just say, for example, like today, what I've had at noon, I had some bananas with some, what is it called again? With some nectarine. And this evening, I had just some pineapples with some clementine. That's all. But I don't count my macros. I just eat. When I feel satisfied, I just stop. That's all I do.
So does that fall in the category of something like intuitive eating? You eat when you're hungry, and when you're just satisfied, you stop eating?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing, because I like to follow a little bit of what the animal kingdom do, because I think that they are still in touch with the laws of nature, and that's exactly what they do. When they are hungry, they eat, and when they are full, they stop. They are not just like us human beings who eat multiple times in a day, and that's exactly what I do. So I only eat twice a day, and that's it, with no snacking in between.
Oh, just twice a day you're eating?
Yes, only twice a day. And why do I do that? It's because I've seen that when we eat, our bodies will spend 80% of its energy digesting food. And when you are constantly eating, the body will not be able to cleanse and do the cleansing process. because the body can only cleanse when you're not digesting food. It's, for example, if you've got a car, you take it to the garage, you can't drive it at the same time. And that's exactly what the body does. It only cleans when you're not digesting food. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So I give my body a very long time to try to cleanse and heal by not eating food. That's why I only eat twice a day.
So does this mean you're also not eating any processed foods? No ice cream, no chips, anything that comes in a bag?
Normally, I don't really eat that, just a little bit, because I don't want to be dogmatic. I can have a little bit, for example, of ice cream, vegan ice cream, or, for example, a little bit of, sometimes I will have a little bit of chocolate and stuff like that, but it's not something that I eat very often. For example, I would say in this year, I've had ice cream maybe 3 or 4 times. That's all. It's food that I don't really eat usually.
I think I've eaten ice cream 3 or 4 times just this week. So this is very interesting, Olivier. So when you said you lost about 70 pounds, right?
77.
77. So let's round it up to 80, right? So when you lost the pounds or so, when you were at your highest weight, I know you cut out the meats, but did you have an overeating problem? How did you get to that weight?
I don't think that. Basically, I was not eating a lot, but I was eating frequently. I was eating a lot. So, for example, if they give me food, for example, at noon, I'm not going to eat a lot, but I will eat that. And then maybe after a couple of hours, I will have some. So I was snacking a lot. I think that's the biggest problem for people. It's not really that you eat a lot at one sitting, but when you eat constantly, the body cannot repair itself. The body cannot get rid of toxins. The body cannot cleanse and heal. And that's why people are putting on weight. And I think that was my problem. So I didn't really have an addiction or something, but I was eating constantly all the time. I would have something to eat.
That makes sense. So now with your new approach now, not only you're eating plant-based, but also in a way you're doing intermittent fasting because you're just eating 2 meals a day. So what is the gap in between the last meal of the day and then the first meal next day?
Yeah, so normally what I do, I have my first meal at noon, and my second meal, I will have that at 6 p.m. So I will spend 16, 17 hours without eating. So I will have my first meal at 12, the second one 6 p.m., and I will eat the next day at 12 p.m.
Yeah, so it's around 18-hour fasting. Interesting.
Yes.
So I know for me, when I was at my heaviest, the problem was overeating. I'm a stress eater. When I get hyper-focused with work, I'm just working all the time and I'm eating all the time, right? Let's say I did switch over to plant-based, right? But I don't change how much I'm eating. I could still be overweight, eating a lot of fruits and grains and rice and all of this.
No, you're not going to be overweight. It's impossible. Maybe you will be a little bit bigger than normal, but you will not be overweight because when you look at the fruit, the vegetables and all that, they don't have a lot of calories. Your body will be able to burn that very quickly.
Yeah, that is true. They are not as calorie dense. Correct.
Yeah. Yes. So
in some ways, you have just found calories in and calories out. You have found a smarter way to reduce the consumption of calories, paired it with intermittent fasting, eating cleaner foods, natural foods and not processed foods. And thus 80 pounds, that's not a joke. And you look like a 20-year-old. So that's amazing. So let me ask you this question. Now that you're on this journey of health and wellness, what type of clients are you servicing? What are some of the first things you have them do?
Yes. First of all, when I start with my client, what I will ask them is that they need to work on their mindset because that's paramount. That's the first thing that people need to do because when we'll see that most people, they will arrive in December, they will take the New Year's resolution, they will start working out and stuff like that. And after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maximum a month, they will stop what they were doing and revert back to their old habits. That's why for me, the first thing that I will ask my client is to work on their mindset. They need to start adopting a belief system that will enable them to believe in themselves because most people, they don't believe in themselves. They just do those things just as a whim. They take the decision as a whim and then they start doing that, but they need to find a bigger why. They need to see why they want to change, why they want to have a good health and all these things. And when they can see that they can have a bigger why, then the change will be easier. For example, in my case, I saw that I was always tired. When I was sick, I was in a bad situation. I didn't want to continue to have all these things. And for other people, for example, they can say to themselves, okay, I would like to see my children growing up. I would like to see them getting married and all that. And this is a bigger why. And when you have a bigger why, you will be able to stay on track. So that's the first thing that I ask my clients to do. The second thing that I will ask them is to start making small changes, because I don't ask people to do like me, to go cold turkey. This is not good, because a lot of people, it can put them off. So I will ask them to introduce small changes. For example, in the morning, instead of eating breakfast, for example, with bread, salami, bacon, hot dogs, sausages, and stuff like that, I will ask them, for example, to just have, for example, toast with peanut butter. For example, they can have a toast with a sliced banana with peanut butter. Or, for example, they can have a vegan cereal with some strawberries, some blueberries, with some dairy-free milk. So they introduce small changes like that. And for example, at noon, instead of, for example, eating animal products 7 days a week, I will ask them to eat at the start 5 days a week. So for 5 days, they can eat that, and 2 days they don't eat. And when they eat meat, they just eat that like a condiment. They don't overeat that. And for example, at dinner in the evening, they can have, for example, lentil with tomato soup, or they can have lentil with kale soup, or they can have a little bit of salad. For example, they can have some lettuce, some cucumber, some tomato, some sweet corn, and stuff like that. So they start introducing all these changes, and slowly but surely, and then they will start feeling better. They will start losing weight, and that's how I start with my clients.
What is the detox process like when they are slowly switching over as opposed to drastically switching over like you did?
Usually when they do that, they don't really have detox symptoms as such, because they introduce the changes very slowly. The body starts getting accustomed to the new changes. For example, for a lot of people, they don't eat fruit. A lot of people don't eat fruit. And if you introduce that abruptly, then you can have a problem. But if you can start eating that very slowly, for example, in the morning, you have a little bit of fruit. The next day, you don't. And the day after, you have. So you introduce that very slowly. And usually, for most of my clients, they don't really go through detox symptoms. But what happens is that maybe they will start craving the meat, or they will start craving ice cream, or just sweet things like that. But the detox symptom as such, they don't really go through that, because they introduce all the changes very slowly.
And you're right. A lot of people don't eat fruit, but then a lot of people are also allergic to grains, right? So what options would they have if they can't eat fruit or eat grains? Do you have any other modifications that you make to diets?
Yeah, so for me, what I think is that we are normally frugivores. These human beings, they are frugivores, just the monkeys, the gorillas, and all that. If we have some allergy toward eating fruit and stuff like that, it's because there's a root cause that we're not addressing, and that's why we have all these problems. But if we start addressing the root cause, we start introducing this thing very slowly, or reducing all the bad food that we're eating, most people, they will see that this allergy will start disappearing. Because, for example, when you eat a lot of processed food, and as a race, we eat 50% of what we eat processed food, 2% are animal product, and only 7% are fruit and vegetables. And in those 7%, unfortunately, the majority is potatoes to make French fries. So we eat very little of fresh produce. And if we start cutting back on all this processed food, cutting back on animal products, and slowly introducing all this food, I think for most people, all this allergy will disappearing. That's what I think.
Very interesting. Now, do you also recommend a certain type of cooking? For example, I come from India. There's a very big vegetarian and vegan population in India, but there's also incredibly high heart disease rates and clogged arteries because of the way the food is being prepared. A lot of the vegetarian food is just being fried. We know you fry anything, it starts tasting great. So are there limitations, guidance, protocols that you give to your clients about the method to cook the food, or does anything go?
What I try to say to my client is to avoid, for example, a lot of oil, because usually when people cook, they put loads and loads of oil, which is not good. I'll ask them to reduce the amount of oil they use, and I will ask them to use either organic coconut oil, or olive oil, virgin olive oil. That's the two oils that I ask people to use. And usually I will ask them as well to try to steam the food. For example, if they cook the vegetables, I'll ask them to steam that instead of cooking or leaving them for too long on the stove. And when they start to progress in the journey, I will ask them to introduce as well a lot of raw food, because raw food is the best. For example, at the stage where I am at, I'm eating 98% of what I eat is raw. I only eat 2% of cooked food. And why do I ask them to introduce those raw food? It's because when you look at raw food, they've got lots of nutrients, they've got lots of nutrients nutrient and stuff like that. And when we start cooking, we kill all this vitamin, the phytonutrient and stuff like that. So we need to introduce, if people, because I'm not asking people to become raw vegan and stuff, but I would like to ask them to introduce more raw food in the habit.
What about adjusting socially? Because I am not a vegetarian. I am eating meats, I am eating carbs, I'm eating fats, but I'm not drinking alcohol, right? I'm not eating fried wings. When I'm going out, I have to be careful about what I order out, because even though I'm eating everything, the method of preparation at restaurants is bad, right? And just that feels restrictive to me. I cannot go out with my friends willy-nilly at wherever they go and eat and drink with them, right? I'm just sitting there sipping on water or drinking a Diet Coke while they're sipping on beer, right? The diet of raw plant-based food is even more restrictive. So how do you coach your client through the mindset aspect of it? Because you're always feeling left out. How do you prep for that?
So what I will say, first of all, to my client is that they need to see, first of all, their health, because their health is the most important thing that they have. Because when we are born on this earth, we have this body and we need to take care of it. And we've only got this one body. So that's the first thing that they need to understand first. And what I try to ask them as well is to, for example, when they go out, yes, it's difficult, even for me, it's difficult to always find what I want. But what I will ask them is to maybe sometimes they can make few exceptions, but what they need to understand is that they need not to take that as a habit. For example, once in a while, you can go to a restaurant, you can go with your friends and stuff like that. You can eat cooked food and all that, because in my coaching program, I'm not asking people to become raw vegan. Mostly it's cooked food that I ask them to do, but I ask them to add a little bit of raw food. But when they go to a restaurant, for example, yes, they need to start choosing what they have to eat, and they need to be mindful of that. But what I'm asking them is to not frequent restaurants too much, because if they do that on weekly or the weekly basis, then they will start deteriorating their health. And that's what I'm asking them to do.
And you're right. There's a famous quote that says, a healthy man has 1,000 wishes and a sick man only has one, which is to not be sick anymore. So what you're offering through your program and your coaching is a way of life that allows one to live a healthy life. And then if you are focused on that, then I guess the sacrifices are easier to make, because you're focused on a lifelong health. So wonderful. So let me ask you this question then. I know a lot of listeners are thinking, plant-based diet, restrictive diet, what happens to me long term? Are there any studies that show that in terms of organ health, skin health, hair health, nail health, what happens long term? Sure, I'm losing the weight, but sure, if I'm worried about long-term organ health, what do studies show?
Yes, a lot of studies shows that when people adopt a plant-based nutrition, they live longer. They avoid a lot of chronic diseases. And for example, his name is Dr. Campbell, I think. Dr. Campbell, he did the China study. And a lot of people can go and have a look at that, the China study. And in there, it details really how the plant-based nutrition is very beneficial to getting a good health. There's also Dr. Michael Greger. There's Dr. Michael Clapper. All these doctors, they've done lots of publications, and all of them are suggesting that by going plant-based, basically it's going to give you a longer life. You will suffer from less of the chronic diseases that people have and all that. And as people can see as well, is that, for example, there's a guy called Dr. Aris Latam. He's live in Panama. He has been a raw vegan for 54 years. Today is 77. He doesn't suffer from any chronic diseases. So for the past 50 years, he's not been sick a single day. Can you imagine that? There's him. There's another one who is called Lauren Lockman. He lives in Costa Rica. He's been vegan for, I think, 35 years or something like that. He's in good health, no diseases and stuff like that. A lot of studies shows that when you follow that path, it's become difficult to become sick. Because like I keep saying, is that we people, we are frugivores. If we even have to look at anatomy and we compare that with the carnivores, we will see that we fall more on the side of herbivores rather than carnivores. And because of that, when we really eat a plant-based nutrition, it's really something that is good for people. And even though I'm not a religious guy, but usually for people who are Christians, when they look in the Bible, in Genesis 1:29, it said that it gives us fruit and vegetables to eat in the Garden of Eden. It didn't say meat, fish, chicken, or processed food or dairy product. It said fruit and vegetables. And usually when people apply that, they see tremendous changes in their level of the food.
When it comes to your clients, we talked about all the good things you're doing with them. What is something that they struggle with the most when they are on this diet?
Yeah, what they struggle the most is their mindset, leaving all the bad food and concentrating on the right food. But the most is the family members. That's the most that they need to overcome. For example, usually I coach mostly women, and when I do the coaching, maybe the husband will not encourage his wife or his partner to do that. And usually that's the biggest blockage that they've got. And usually, for example, the woman will have to cook meat for her husband, and for her, she will do something else. And all this will create a lot of problems, and it's become a little bit difficult to stay on track. But when both the man and the woman are on this plant-based nutrition, then it works wonderfully good. So that's really the problem that they have. Or, for example, when they go to the family members, they will ask them, why are you on this diet? You will be sick. You're not going to have enough protein. This is not good. And especially as well, if they go to the doctors, they will say, no, this is not safe and all that. So that's mostly the social people around them. That is the biggest hurdle that they have to overcome. And that was exactly the same with me. Luckily for me, my wife was very supportive, and she was able to get onto this plant-based nutrition as well. And for her, she lost 99 pounds, which is nearly 100 pounds. But she was very supportive. But for example, my parents, my sisters, my cousin, my friends, all of them, they were against that. And even at the start, people were making fun of me. They were mocking me and stuff like that. And some people were even suggesting or were saying that I was HIV positive because I lost a lot of weight. So it was really hard to overcome all this by my family and my friends. And today, after mocking me, making fun of me and stuff, now it's the same people who come to ask for advice now because they've seen that I've really transformed my health.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how that happens. And you're 100% correct. Going out with friends can be optional, but who we are and who we are living with inside the house sometimes is an option. And I know this is a struggle for me myself, even though my wife is very healthy and she's always eating very healthy. Sometimes when I'm on a bodybuilding prep diet, which is very bland food, same food every single day, just the smells of her cooking delicious food is enough of a struggle for me. If somebody's on a plant-based diet and their husband or wife is chowing down some burgers and some pizzas, that's very difficult to combat with. Yeah. And to that end, I'm sorry to hear that you have to struggle with people mocking you and saying all types of things. But it's funny how the world works, because at first they laugh at you and then they want to come and know what you did because they want the same results. So kudos to you for sticking on your path and knowing that what you're talking about, and you can not only bring the result for yourself and your wife, but for countless others clients as well. What else, when the listeners are listening to it, what other tips could you give them if they want to experiment with this, if they want to start with this?
Yeah, the tips that I can give them, first of all, like I've said, is to implement intermittent fasting. This is very important because, like I said, if they can start eating 2 meals a day with no snacking in between, because like I was just saying, when we eat that way, the body will work less. And because, like I said, 80% of the energy goes to digest food. And this is very good. And what is important as well is that when you're constantly eating, your body will produce insulin. And especially if you eat a lot of processed food with refined sugar and stuff like that, the body will produce insulin. All these spikes of insulin will speed up the cellular aging, and you will start aging very fast. But when you look, for example, when you're not eating, when you're not digesting, the body will produce what is called human growth hormone. And the human growth hormone will stimulate the growth of all the tissues in your body. When you do intermittent fasting as well, there's something which is called autophagy that the body will start that process. And autophagy is where the body eats dead and dying tissues. And this is very good. And the benefit of intermittent fasting, you will have a stronger immune system. You will slow down your aging process, and you will be able to extend your lifespan. Another tip that I can give them is that if they can start introducing the fruit in their diet, they can drink a lot of water, because a lot of people, they don't like to drink water. And when we know that percent of our body is water. And for a lot of function to be executed, we need water. And unfortunately, no other drinks can replace water. So that people can really drink water. They can as well start doing a little bit of exercise and, for example, do some stretching exercise in the morning, go for walks and stuff like that, because a lot of people, they don't like to do that. They just sit in the couch and they do nothing. They start doing those things. They have as well to expose themselves to sunlight, because sunlight is very important. We've got vitamin D, and vitamin D control over 2,500 genes in our bodies. So people can start implementing all these tips, and they will see that their health will start getting better.
Love it. Thank you so much, Olivier. I mean, what you have achieved is nothing short of remarkable. We live in a world where there are so many gravitational forces that are pulling off our sides, right? Taking us off our path. Everybody starts a diet on January 1st, but then whether it is the gravitational force of the bag of chips in the pantry, or the ice cream in the fridge, or the friends that's twisting your arm to go out with you, it's very difficult to stick to a diet. And for you to be able to have given up all this meat and living a life of pure, fresh fruits and vegetables, losing close to 80 pounds, your wife losing to close to 99 pounds, and now taking this information, sharing it with the world. What you have achieved is nothing short of remarkable. So kudos to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. And I really want people to really try to make some changes in their lives, because like I said, when we are born on this health, we've only got one body, and we need to do everything we can to be in good health so that we can live a long and fruitful life. And that's really what I want people to really start implementing, so that they can see their children growing up, they can see them getting married, they can see their grandchildren and stuff like that. And this is really powerful. So I really want people to understand that it's possible to live a disease-free life, because we've been told that when you grow up, you need to become sick and all that. But when I started this journey, I was 46. Today I'm 54, and my health is getting better and better. So I really want people to understand that it's possible to live a disease-free life. They don't have to suffer.
Love it. Thank you so much for appearing on the podcast. I will obviously give all the information in the description below to connect with Olivier, so that you can work with him one-on-one, so that you can learn from him one-on-one and live a happy, long, disease-free life. Thank you for being on the show, Olivier.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate that.